As the Bank of Japan edges closer to relinquishing its decade-long ultraloose monetary policy, a notable voice within the central bank's ranks is offering a cautionary perspective. Toyoaki Nakamura, a prominent dev on the BOJ's policy board, has signaled a willingness to consider a gradual reduction in bond purchases, but remains wary of hasty interest rate hikes and a precipitous exit from the bank's yield curve control program. Speaking in Sapporo this past Thursday, Nakamura acknowledged that a reduction in bond buying operations could be appropriate over time as Japan's economic recovery solidifies. However, he swiftly tempered expectations, stating, "I think it's too soon for a rate hike." His remarks underscore the delicate balancing act facing the BOJ as it navigates the uncharted waters of policy normalization. Nakamura's dissenting voice has been a constant through the central bank's recent policy shifts. In March, he was one of two board members who voted against the BOJ's historic decision to end its negative interest rate policy, marking the first rate increase in 17 years. Prior to that, Nakamura opposed changes to the yield curve control mechanism in July and October, advocating for a more patient approach until Japanese businesses demonstrated a robust recovery in their earning power. While most economists anticipate the BOJ to maintain its current policy stance at next week's meeting, a growing chorus envisions a potential reduction in bond buying commitments. According to people familiar with the matter, BOJ officials will likely deliberate whether the time is ripe to slow the pace of bond purchases and provide greater clarity on the policy outlook, enhancing predictability for market participants. Nakamura's reticence stems from his assessment of Japan's wage dynamics. In a speech earlier in the day, he expressed skepticism about the sustainability of wage increases, questioning whether the structural improvements witnessed in large corporations would ripple through to smaller enterprises. "I personally am not confident that wage increases will be sustainable, with the effect of structural improvements at large companies rippling to smaller companies still weak," Nakamura cautioned. Although wage gains for the current fiscal year are projected to be the highest in 33 years, Nakamura emphasizes the need for confirmation that small and medium-sized enterprises, which employ a staggering 80% of Japan's workforce, also experience significant wage growth. Until then, he remains unconvinced that the impact of wages on prices will be sufficiently robust to warrant aggressive policy tightening. Japan's economic trajectory only adds to the complexity of the BOJ's decision-making process. The country's economy contracted in the first quarter of 2023, as consumer spending faltered amid the highest inflation rates in decades. This development has cast doubt on the sustainability of price growth, further complicating the central bank's path to policy normalization. As the BOJ convenes next week, Nakamura's perspectives will undoubtedly weigh heavily in the discussions. His calls for a measured approach highlight the intricate balancing act the central bank must strike between supporting economic recovery and addressing inflationary pressures. The road to monetary normalization in Japan is likely to be a winding one, with policymakers treading carefully to avoid disrupting the fragile equilibrium. In the midst of this pivotal juncture, Nakamura's voice serves as a reminder of the complexities inherent in unwinding a decade of unprecedented monetary accommodation. As Japan inches closer to a post-pandemic era, the central bank's decisions will reverberate through the nation's economic landscape, shaping the trajectory of growth, inflation, and the overall well-being of its citizens.